Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. So today we're going to be looking at a Republican dream scenario on the United States Senate map for the 2018 midterm elections. So essentially what that means is we're going to take probably one of the more unrealistic possibilities for the Senate maps and just put that up and see what can happen in terms of a not too realistic type of scenario. Yes, all these races could possibly go to a GOP candidate, and the reasoning behind it actually could be substantial in terms of reasoning for these elections going a certain way. But when we look at it right now and looking at a number of these races, they're probably going to sway in one way or the other leading into the 2018 midterm elections just because of how they're voting now and the overall data that we have from these races. So I've left every single race here uncontested, but even in a Republican dream scenario, there are always states that are going to be in the safe Democratic column, like Hawaii or California. At this point, probably Washington. We can move into the safe column. Vermont, most definitely. Massachusetts. See Connecticut, Rhode Island, not New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland. My own state of Maryland probably would be a safe Democratic state. Interesting, though, if you go back to 2006 and you look at the state of Maryland, Ben Cardin was supposed to win by 3%, which very much shocked me because Maryland was looked at as a key toss-up race, which is very surprising considering how democratic of a state it was back then compared to how it is now. It's around the same. So when we look at that, we had a Republican governor back then too. It just seemed weird because the race was contested in a Democratic wave year, and in fact states like Pennsylvania voted for the Democrats more than Maryland. So that was pretty surprising to me. But moving on from that, we can look at a number of other states. So we've pretty much characterized all the safe states, you could say. There are some states that are going to be likely for the Democrats, but we can move over into the safe GOP states. And again, keep in mind this is the best case scenario, more than that for the GOP. In fact, this would be their dream scenario. So if something was phenomenal to happen to them, this is what the map likely could end up as. And obviously, they would retain the majority. But we'll start off with Wyoming, Nebraska, Utah. I did those out of order, but still the states. Mississippi special election, go into the safe column. If we're talking about a dream scenario for the GOP, we're going to start off with their likely states. That is a state like Texas and a state like Nevada. Now, the reason why I moved both of those states into the likely GOP column under this type of scenario is, number one, because Ted Cruz already leads by around a likely margin in terms of the Texas Senate race. When I cap off likely, that finishes off around 15%. I think it could be 13-14% for Ted Cruz in the Texas Senate race. Now in the state of Nevada, I think it could get over that little 5% hedge mark and go to Dean Heller, considering right now he's actually leading in terms of opinion polls against Jackie Rosen. And also, right now, we aren't seeing a lot of excitement in terms of the governor's race either. So if one was to drag the other candidate in terms of the other race itself over the finish line, the GOP could drag the GOP over the finish line, or the Democrats can drag the Democrats over the finish line. But again, dream scenario, so Nevada's likely to go to the Republican Party by that amount. In terms of states that are probably going to be likely for the Democratic Party, Minnesota at large, and that's really hard to call because Amy Klobuchar is extremely popular. Even in a dream scenario, it probably wouldn't go down to the leaning column. This is probably 15% in the likely Democratic column. So it's not like it's down there. It's pretty much up there considering the power of the incumbency and the popularity of the incumbent in that state, along with the state of Maine. Right now, we look at a state like this, and you might expect it to get close because it was closer in 2016. That's not so much the case in the 2018 Senate elections. But we can move over to some other races that probably are going to get a little bit more contested. So even in a state like Virginia, the Republicans have no shot there. In New Mexico, probably not because of someone like Gary Johnson. So when we look at these individual races, it doesn't look too good for the GOP in terms of them getting a supermajority. But looking at a number of these states, you could make arguments for all of the remaining states as to why they could go to Republican candidates. Even states like Minnesota and New Jersey, which did not go to Donald Trump back in 2016. But every one of these states that is currently gray, except for Minnesota and New Jersey, all went to Trump in 2016. Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, those three states that led him to victory, and then states that added to his victory: Florida, Tennessee, Missouri, West Virginia, Ohio, Indiana, North Dakota, Montana, and Arizona. So a couple of swing states there from 2016, but more importantly, they're all swing states in the 2018 midterm elections. But we can go ahead and start characterizing some of these more Republican-leaning states and move those into the likely GOP column. North Dakota probably would be in the likely GOP column, and at this point, the Republicans officially retain the majority in the United States Senate. But Tennessee and Arizona, we could actually move into the likely GOP column. Now, the reason why that may seem a little weird, but is smart in terms of the way that I'm putting out this map, is because of the fact, number one, McSally leads by 6% in a new poll that came out today. I'm going to be analyzing the polls from yesterday and today just in two separate videos, but you will see that poll if you do eventually watch the video. Over in Tennessee, right now Marsha Blackburn leading by 8%, so these likely margins aren't even too crazy. Okay, yes, I do expect it to narrow back down and get to a little bit closer in terms of Democrat versus Republican, but right now, according to the most recent polls in both of these races, they are likely GOP states. So we're going to see arguments for that in future videos, but right now we're just looking at the states itself, and obviously in a dream scenario, they would probably remain in the likely GOP column, if not move in the safe column, but Tennessee and Arizona, I don't want to push too far into the GOP column. Now, looking at a couple of these other races, you can start by characterizing some of these races that could move into the likely GOP column. States like Missouri could move into the likely GOP column. States like Indiana could go to the likely GOP column. In terms of best case scenarios for the GOP, they would probably flip states like West Virginia could go to the GOP. In fact, actually, Florida would go into the likely GOP column in their dream scenario. Keep in mind, everything would be working correctly, and it would be pretty good for them in those states. West Virginia probably would move only down into the leaning GOP column, along with a state like Montana. When it comes down to these races across here, right now we're going to characterize states like Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Ohio as tilt Democratic states. I'm really contesting whether or not they're between 1% to 3%, but I think a tilt could just give them an overlay in terms of the map that we see here, and that leaves a total of 2 contested races. So just take this in for a moment. Look at the map we have now. Currently have 49 Democrats and 51 Republicans. Now, looking at this map, Democrats are getting a lot of their base from states they probably wouldn't be winning in if it wasn't for the incumbents. States like Montana or North Dakota, Missouri, Indiana, West Virginia, Alabama. I mean, these are states that are probably Republican states for the 2020 presidential election. And unfortunately for Democrats, once these incumbents are gone, they're probably not going to replace them with anyone more popular. It could have been possible back in 2012 or 2006. But now that we're looking at a much more divided nation and a lot has passed since the last time there was a Democratic wave year, it's going to be very hard for Democrats to win here. Now, this is not necessarily relating to a dream scenario for the GOP, but still, when we're looking at this map, keep that in mind. You take away all these Trump states from 2016 and you keep states like Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Ohio, the Republicans still have a huge majority in the Senate. For Democrats, they should be very lucky they have incumbents in a number of these states because they're actually making them contested. For the Democrats, God forbid that they have lost an incumbent in North Dakota. Let's say Heidi Heitkamp doesn't run. That would be a safe GOP state straight off the bat. Missouri, let's say Claire McCaskill retires this election season, or in Indiana, Joe Donnelly retires this election season. It all comes down to these incumbents because they're pretty popular. In fact, there's new opinion polls that I will be analyzing tomorrow about the incumbents' popularity in both the governor races and the Senate elections, because they actually do say a lot about how these races possibly could be going by the end of 2018. A lot of dropping numbers for these number of Democrats in the Senate right now. But with these 2 contested races left, in fact, New Jersey, as crazy as it seems, could tilt in the favor of the GOP, whereas the Minnesota special election, with new data out today, can tilt in the favor of the Democratic Party, which finishes off our map at 42 Democrats and 58 Republicans. This is what the map looks like now. Now, that may not seem too bad, just looking at the map by itself. Contested races in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Wisconsin, still 2 Democrats in Michigan, still 2 Democrats in Virginia, in Minnesota. When it comes down to these races, there's a lot more blue on this map here than there is here. It doesn't seem that crazy. I mean, we're only seeing a couple of states change. Keep in mind that's 1 senator for each of those states that changes. So when we're looking at this map, not looking good for the Democratic Party. Obviously, in a dream scenario, it's not likely to happen. Having 58 Republicans and 42 Democrats leading into the election season, that would be something phenomenal for the GOP. They really don't need to worry about anything if this was their map. But obviously, it isn't their map. A number of these states are going to go to the Democratic Party and probably are going to be a lot larger margins than what we're seeing now, or a number of these GOP states are probably going to be a lot closer than what we're expecting on this type of map. But keep in mind, this is, again, a dream scenario. It's not something that I'm saying is likely to happen or even remotely possible. It's just that has that little less than 1% chance of happening in terms of the overall way that we're looking at this map. So we see flips in states like New Jersey, West Virginia, Indiana, Missouri, Florida, North Dakota, Montana, and then we see, I don't think we see any Democratic flips, but we see Democratic holds in states like Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, and Wisconsin, which all went to Trump in 2016. But when we're looking at this map again, very different than what we might expect, but also, again, dream scenario. So can't take much from this map. It's always just fun to see hypotheticals in terms of either political party, which is why I do make these videos. So that pretty much wraps up today's video. We have a final map with 58 Republicans, coming from a number of these states, a number of Trump states, and 42 Democrats, of course, with the 2 independents who caucus with them. That gives them the 42, compared to 51 Republicans to 49 Democrats. So there's the change there. Thank you guys for watching this video. Comment down suggestions below, and I will see you all tomorrow.